Welcome to Let's Talk Transportation, a podcast series of the Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization, also known as the MPO. We talk about the ins and outs of transportation in Broward County and all of Southeast Florida, why it matters, how it works, and the challenges and opportunities related to achieving great transportation. I'm your host, Greg Stewart, Executive Director of the MPO, and I'm joined by
Beam Furr, and I am a Broward County Commissioner in District 6.
Oh, welcome, Beam. A lot of people always ask me, so what does Beam mean?
I didn't know you were going to start off with this, but okay. I was actually born on January 21st, and my sister was giving me a Valentine's Day card on February 14th, which is 3 weeks later. And she was in kindergarten. She couldn't spell. So she, instead of writing Be My Valentine, she stuck an A in the middle and it came out Be Me Valentine. And my mom then wrote a musical called Be Me Valentine. And I got stuck. I already had a real name. Quentin is my real name. But I got stuck with that for...
So that's actually pretty cool. Yeah. So what actually brought you down to Broward County?
Came down here in 1969.
Okay.
So went to high school down here, junior high school. So I've been here a long time.
69 is a while ago. I actually remember we came down here, I want to say it was like 68 or 67.
Okay.
And that was pre I-95 and all the rest of it. So
it was just being built.
Yeah. So
when I would go surfing up coast, we would have to go partway Dixie Highway, partway Fort Lauderdale Turnpike, partway I-95, and then we'd get up there.
Finally get up to, where'd you go surfing in?
Sebastian, yeah. Fort Pierce.
Oh,
okay.
I used to surf 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, so and we'd leave 4 o'clock in the morning, and it'd be like, it was a rough ride going all the way up Dixie and the whole bit. So
watching sunrise at 6 a.m. is an amazing thing on one of the old Florida roads.
Yep.
So did those experiences influence you on the transportation system, or what could be? I mean, what brought you into the idea of working, or at least influencing transportation policy?
Well, it definitely informed me in giving me the kind of the lay of the land of the area. I also went to school in the Northeast, so I had a chance, and I lived in New York, I lived in Boston, so I had a chance to see those networks, how they worked. And, we've been car-centric here from the get-go. Since my first car, my 1954 Pontiac. And it's just been that way, and it's going to be a hard thing to shift, no two ways about it. But we all know what we're up against. We all are starting to see traffic jams that we never grew up with. And so, we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to adapt. And I live near where Hollywood is going to be having a train station.
Right.
And I cannot wait I would love to be able to just walk over there, jump on a train and go north and south. And I think a lot of people would.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of my relatives. I talked to a lot of friends, and they can't wait for that particular project. Mm-hmm. Even though we have Tri-Rail here, the People's Train to the West Tracks by the building here, it's the idea of going from one downtown to another to be able to connect. So when you first ran for office, I'm going to say back, I guess it was Hollywood, and you were
2000.
What was some of the issues that made you run?
One of them, I moved into an area that was a little iffy.
Okay.
And I was a school teacher, making very, very little money, and I bought where I could afford.
Right.
And it actually was a transportation idea that messed up the area.
Okay.
Because what they did is they put barriers at the end of certain streets to try to prohibit navigability, and it walled off the area where I live and still live, and really kind of ghettoized it, to be honest.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I watched my property values absolutely drop.
Because they closed off the road.
Yeah, what they were doing is they were trying to trap all the criminals in one area, and so I was in that area, and so I had to either move out of the area or I had to change the area and do it, and I couldn't afford to move out of it. So my main thing was trying to make it a safe area,
Right.
And that when you start doing that, it blossoms into all kind of things, because then you're looking at the actual landscaping of the area, the schools, law enforcement, what businesses are there. It just kind of blossoms, and so I found myself taking on all kind of different issues.
So as I've interviewed some of the local politicians down here, and even some of the other folks, usually their story starts with, well, something happened in my neighborhood, or a sign went up, and then all of a sudden this road showed up. And so for you, it was actually, they blocked you in.
They blocked me in.
Really fascinating.
And it's still that way.
Oh, really?
It's still that way. I mean, I
have the property value. Well, I'm sorry.
Well, they've gone. Well, you know what? It's funny, because my property values went, literally went down.
Right.
For a number of years, down. Now, because of proximity to the downtown, and maybe because of proximity to railroad stations and stuff like that, now it's all going up again. In a different way.
Do you see that land use / transportation nexus, now with the transit side coming in, what do you think, from your own experiences in your neighborhood, what do you think is going to start happening along the different corridors now that you with the county have released the Primo plan? And for those of who's listening, the Primo plan is a very, very robust transit system for the entire county. So what do you think that's going to do for the real estate side of the business?
I think it really opens up possibilities. For TODs, transit-oriented development. For instance, the railroad station is not too far from me. The area I live in is low to moderate income.
Okay.
And it's, it is ripe for redevelopment. There are many places that would make sense to aggregate and to build a little higher, and for people to not even need a car. Perhaps just to be able to go to the railroad station, or, with the Primo plan to have bus rapid transit to get out of that part of it.
So that begs the question, because I live in a moderate to low income area myself. Okay. I live off of Sunrise Boulevard and 15th, behind a Walgreens. Okay. And lots of interesting homeless population. Mm-hmm. But that said, when you think about the change in the cost of living and the type of density that we're talking about, and I'm not going to use the term gentrification, because I don't think that's what you're saying. Where do you think that we as a community need to go to assist those folks as they're replaced in these particular areas?
Well, I think what needs to happen, like in that area, that's an area that is, it's like I said, it's ripe for redevelopment. It is somewhat affordable now, but a lot of people don't want to go there,
right? Because
they feel like it's not safe. And so it needs to rise to a point where it's like people look at it as potential. Mm-hmm. Okay, I could live here. I've been there 30 years. I don't feel that way, but it's...
You own your home. Congratulations.
I do own my home. But it's, I think that area, and it's a lot of the in Broward County. Right. You're really talking about a swath, all from border to border up in next to I-95.
Right.
This is an area that is, we have a real affordable housing crisis in Broward County.
Yes, sir, we do.
But there's actually a lot of places that people could live and that are affordable. A lot of them don't want to live there. So it's up to us to make those areas safe and desirable. And part of that being desirable is having a transit system that has access to it. Right now, we're building a lot of affordable housing rentals.
Right.
I would really like to see that switch to the point where you're doing affordable housing, and if people could buy the condos, that then is that people have a chance to build equity. They have a chance to build generational wealth. That is being. I don't want to see an entire generation lose out on that.
And so, with the transit plan, and as we kind of together, we're building this really bright future for access.
Right.
We talked a little bit on the affordable housing side, but let's also talk about, the resiliency side, the climate change.
Right.
Because typically areas that are least affordable are the ones that we've made the biggest investments in to deal with climate change. How do you see that from your global view on?
Well, it's interesting that the places that are probably more out of the flood zone, let's just say, are actually those areas that are
on the tracks.
Yeah, on the tracks. Like I'm right next to the tracks. I'm near the tracks. And when we just had this big flood, I was okay. But you go right over the tracks, and everybody was like, it was a mess.
I to share with everybody on the phone or online, basically we've had a 1,000-year flood event here in Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood area, and 26 inches of rain fell within 24 hours or less. To be honest with you, it felt like 12 hours or less. Let's talk on the climate side thing, though. So with the investments, how do you see the county dealing with the transit system, with sea level rise, with 1,000-year flooding events happening?
What we are doing right now is we are investing in it's about a $3 or $4 million study. It's a vulnerability assessment.
Okay.
That will literally look using LiDAR and every tool that we've got, hydrologic studies, to really look where is the most vulnerable parts of Broward County, not only for the roadways, but for all infrastructure. Right. And then what that will do is inform us to where we need to put resources, what roads we might need to raise. I think I was just talking with one of the commissioners from Dania and the need to raise Dania Beach Boulevard.
Right.
I know I don't even have to have a $3 million study. I already know that it floods, and they're going to have to figure out that and A1A right down where it connects. Those are prone to flooding not even on high tide.
Right.
So we know where a lot of this is going to go.
I actually wanted to bring you back onto the transportation side, because one of the other things that I look at that has amazed me in my career here is that the effort you put in when you showed up on the county commission for the sales tax, for the transportation sales tax, and on behalf of all of us that are transportation geeks, thank you. I remember meeting with you, and you weren't on the MPO at the time, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. You were, county commissioner and a couple other boards you were on. But did you really ever see yourself in that role, that you were going to be advocating for a surtax for transportation?
No. No, I didn't. But I guess because I'd been on the county commission for 3 or 4 years prior to that.
Right.
And then when I became mayor, I saw it as an opportunity.
Good.
I saw this is something that could change Broward for 30 years, for the generations, and because of the type of government we have, we don't have a mayor every for
no strong mayor.
No strong mayor, but you do have an opportunity. You have a slight bit of extra whatever to be able to push. And so when we had our retreat that year, as mayor, I said what I wanted to do.
Right.
And I said this is an opportunity, and I know I had everybody saying this is not the right year. It's an off year,
including me.
And I think you as well. I think everybody, and in fact we had a meeting. I'm looking right across where people can't see it because it's a podcast, but we were in a meeting and there were people in there saying, wrong year. The writers aren't going to be the ones who would be voting. It's not a presidential year. All these, it was like 10 million reasons. And I'm going, this county is seeing what they're having to deal with. They're dealing with transportation jams. This is higher on everybody's list than everybody realizes. And it won by
almost a super majority, right?
I think, wasn't it 67%?
Yeah, it was huge.
That was a huge amount. Yeah. And
all I know is my colleagues around the country, when I was telling them we were doing this, even they were, oh, you're nuts. You're absolutely nuts. And I'm like, well, we're doing it. And it won. So were you surprised, or you just knew, your gut told you it was going to happen? It was
a gamble.
That's fair.
But it was an educated gamble. That was like, this is worth giving it a shot, because we just lost.
Right. 2 years early.
Bigger thing that had just happened, the wave had just been canceled.
Right.
And I looked at, and part of when that got canceled, I also thought about this. I said most everybody that said they were against the wave said they're not against mass transit.
Right, that's true.
They said we're not against mass transit. We're just against this. So I said, okay, I'm going to call your bluff on this.
Yeah.
I said, if you're saying you want for mass transit, then we need you being in favor of this.
Right.
And thankfully, a lot of those people that might be called naysayers, they said, okay.
They coalesced around
the idea that this is a bigger picture.
That's great.
And so a lot of what was the opposition was no longer the opposition. And I think when I looked at that, because there was no organized opposition to it, which is one of the reasons it passed.
And folks around the country look to us and say, how did this happen? I talk to folks, whether it's in Salt Lake City or in St. Louis, they're always asking. It's just like, well, how did this work? And explain to me. And I tell them, and they're like, but everyone tells you that's not how you do it. And maybe you have to cancel something big.
Yeah. Right. I don't think people realize, most people, if they were looking at that, they wouldn't look at that as one of the main reasons it passed.
Causation.
But I look at that as because I'm looking at it from all the different groups I talk to,
right.
and I said we need you on our side on this.
Perfect.
Because it was hard to get the cities really on the side, because they had just the one that had just failed had more money going to them. They didn't, and that's why we also made sure with this that there was 10% minimum going to all the cities. And then once they saw that, they kind of said, okay, well, we won't go against it. We're not going to go full hog for it, but
we're not going to fight it either.
We're not going to fight it.
Beam Furr, Commissioner Furr, I'm going to ask you to come back on another podcast, and we'll go over certain projects that are coming up, like the FECR, or the Broward Coastal Rail System, some of the east-west stuff, the light rail, talk a little bit about the airport. But thank you for coming in today. I appreciate it, and thank you for your service with us.
Thanks a lot. There's a lot of great stuff happening.
Oh, yeah.
And you're part of it. The whole MPO is part of it, and it's a bright light. It's a lot of good stuff coming our way.
We have a North Star. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The Let's Talk Transportation podcast is produced by the Broward MPO, where every day we fund and implement projects that move people and goods, create jobs, and strengthen communities. Learn more at browardmpo.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Speak Up Broward. If there is a transportation topic you'd like to know more about, let us know by sending an email to info@browardmpo.org.